Chief Engineer Calseth had designed fusion reactors for 43 years. He'd built power systems for 3 different species, earned 7 advanced degrees, and trained under the legendary master builders of Proxima Station. He'd seen plasma containment failures, antimatter leaks, and gravitational anomalies that defied physics. But he'd never seen anything like Chief Petty Officer James Rodriguez. The human had joined the engineering crew of the Celestial Harmony 6 months ago, part of the Galactic Fleet's integration program. Calseth had been skeptical. Humans came from a Class 12 Deathworld, after all, and their educational standards seemed primitive compared to the Institute's rigorous curriculum. But regulations were regulations, and Rodriguez had the certifications. Sort of. Your training consisted of what? Calseth had asked during the interview, his 6 eyes blinking in confusion. 12 weeks technical school, sir. Then on-the-job training aboard a carrier for 4 years. 12 weeks. Calseth had spent 8 years in university alone. But humans, he'd learned, had a peculiar approach to engineering. They learned by doing, by breaking things and fixing them, by improvising solutions that made academically trained engineers physically ill. The incident happened during a routine plasma flow calibration. Junior engineer Tivanael had miscalculated the magnetic containment field harmonics, a simple error, the kind every apprentice made once. The kind that, in a properly designed system, would trigger 17 safety protocols and an automatic shutdown. Except the Celestial Harmony was 3 weeks past due for maintenance, operating in contested space where shutdowns meant vulnerability. Calseth had been pushing the systems, confident in his calculations, in the mathematical certainty that governed all proper engineering. The reactor core destabilized in 3.7 seconds. Calseth watched in horror as plasma temperatures spiked to 47 million Kelvin. The containment field buckled. Every alarm on the engineering deck screamed warnings in 17 languages. The core would breach in 30 seconds, vaporizing the engineering section and crippling the ship. Evacuate. Calseth bellowed, his translator amplifying the command. The crew fled toward pressure doors, following every protocol, every safety procedure drilled into them. Everyone except Rodriguez. The human ran toward the reactor. What are you doing? Calseth screamed, but Rodriguez was already at the primary console, his fingers flying across controls that were scalding hot from proximity to the failing core. The temperature in the reactor chamber had reached lethal levels, 650 Kelvin and climbing. The radiation counters maxed out, shrieking their digital death warnings. Rodriguez didn't even slow down. Through the observation window, Calseth watched the impossible. The human worked barehanded, ignoring burns that would have sent any rational being into shock. He wasn't following proper procedures, he was improvising, rerouting plasma flows through secondary systems never designed for that purpose, manually adjusting magnetic fields with the kind of intuitive understanding that took decades to develop. He's going to die, whispered Tivanael, her crystalline structure dim with horror. But Rodriguez didn't die. His skin blistered and peeled. His uniform smoked. The radiation exposure meters pinned at levels that should have liquefied his DNA. And he kept working. 15 seconds. He bypassed the primary coolant system entirely, flooding the core with emergency reserves never meant for active containment. 10 seconds. He physically kicked a jammed pressure valve until it opened, his boot leaving a dent in reinforced duralloy. 5 seconds. He grabbed a superconducting cable with his bare hands, a cable carrying enough current to stop a Krogan's heart, and manually reconnected it to an auxiliary port. The reactor stabilized. The plasma temperatures dropped. The containment field reformed. The alarms slowly fell silent. And James Rodriguez collapsed on the deck, steam rising from his charred uniform. The medical team arrived in minutes, their instruments screaming contradictions. Third-degree burns across 40% of his body. Radiation exposure 10 times the lethal dose for most species. Multiple fractures in his right hand from punching duralloy. Yet his vital signs, while erratic, remained stubbornly stable. Adrenaline, the human doctor explained later, as if that word justified everything. Fight or flight response. Increases pain tolerance, strength, reaction time. Humans can temporarily ignore damage that would incapacitate other species. Calseth stood in the observation room, watching Rodriguez sleep off injuries that would have killed him. The human would be back on duty in 3 weeks, the doctors said. Scars, some permanent nerve damage, but functional. That evening, Calseth submitted his resignation to Fleet Command. "I've spent my entire career believing engineering was about precision," he wrote. About calculations, safety margins, and proper procedures. Then I watched a Deathworlder solve an unsolvable problem by simply refusing to accept death as an outcome. I watched him succeed through improvisation, pain tolerance, and sheer stubborn determination. He paused, his appendages trembling as he typed the final words. "I can't compete with that. None of us can. Humans don't just survive on death worlds, they bring the death world with them. They've evolved to treat certain death as merely a strong suggestion. What's the point of 43 years of education when a human with 12 weeks of training can perform miracles through sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit?" Within a month, 6 other engineers transferred off the Celestial Harmony. Not because they feared working with Rodriguez, but because they'd glimpsed something terrifying, the difference between beings who'd evolved in safety, and beings who'd evolved to spit in death's face. Rodriguez received a commendation. He'd shrugged when asked about the incident, his scarred hands already working on the next repair. "Someone had to fix it," he'd said simply. "That's the job." Calseth never returned to engineering. He took a teaching position at the institute, where he added one lesson to every curriculum: never compete with humans in crisis. They don't just survive the impossible, they've convinced themselves impossible doesn't exist.